Okay, I'm going to record. So I might as well start the meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone to the May 29th Rotary Toronto Eglinton weekly meeting on Zoom. I'd like to welcome Mark Wells, who is our speaker for today. Walter's going to introduce him very shortly. We currently have, I think, 23 members on, which is great. And we have some birthdays coming up. We have one specific birthday tomorrow. We have Jim Moore's birthday coming up. So happy birthday tomorrow, Jim.
Hey.
Oh, thank you. Jim. Thanks very much.
On some sadder notes, I don't know if anyone has heard, I know that Craig has, Carol Lavoie, Lionel Lavoie's wife, fell yesterday and broke her hip, fractured her hip, and so she's in emergency surgery today. And Lionel's not going to be with us today, but I just wanted to pass that along to everyone who knows Lionel, that he is currently at the hospital with his wife getting a emergency surgery. So I told him we were thinking of him today during that, but I just want to let everyone know here in the club. I'm now going to call upon Vicky to give us a reflection for today.
Thanks, David. I hope you can hear me okay. I've had some issues with the speaker on my laptop. Anyway, can you hear me okay, David? Just
we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Well, another birthday to celebrate. Last Wednesday, our second grandson was born. And so we are very excited. His older brother, Ben, is 2 now, and we welcomed Charlie Baker Liederman to the world last Wednesday. And as I thought about these 2 beautiful boys, and I thought about looking how tiny Charlie is, and looking where Ben is now as a very robust 2-year-old, everything that Ben has learned in the last couple of years and how he learns from the adults and the people around him. But I also thought about the things that we learn from babies and from toddlers. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. So number 1, adaptability and resilience. Babies are just so incredibly adaptable. They learn to adjust to their environment, they cope with changes, and they overcome challenges. The lesson for us as adults is we can learn to embrace change, we can find creative solutions to life's problems, and we can stay resilient even when faced with adversity. Babies find joy in the simple pleasures. They like things like a good meal, fluffy dandelions, bubbles, and playing with their toes. And as adults, we can also learn from that. We can enjoy simple pleasures like a song that brings back great memories, a meal shared with our families, or a walk on a beautiful day. Babies live in the moment. For them, they live fully in the present. They don't worry about the past or the future, and they focus on what's happening right now. As adults, we can practice mindfulness, we can appreciate the present, and we can try and let go of unnecessary stress. They have uninhibited laughter. They laugh without reservation. They laugh like nobody's listening. And we can also reclaim that laughter by finding humor in life and not taking ourselves or others too seriously. Curiosity and exploration. Babies explore their surroundings with curiosity. They taste, they touch, they observe everything. While I don't recommend tasting and touching everything, I do think that we can adopt a similar mindset. We can stay curious, we can explore new ideas, and we can embrace lifelong learning. They love unconditionally and trust unconditionally. They trust their caregivers and without judgment. And as adults, we can learn to trust others and build strong relationships and love without conditions. And observation and understanding. Observing babies closely helps us to understand them, their preferences and their personalities. And similarly, we can pay close attention to others' cues and practice active listening to enhance our relationships. So in closing, I'd just like to say babies are natural teachers. By observing them, we can gain valuable insights into life and personal growth.
Thank you, Vicky. Yes, very nicely done. We're now going to move on to Happy Bucks, and Craig's going to do the recording. If you have any Happy Bucks, unmute yourself and let us know what you have to be happy about. Anyone?
Well, I've got $10. I had last weekend, I was walking up the patio at my condo, and the patio came up and hit me in the head, and I had to be ambulance to North York General. And I just want to say the quality of care I got and the follow-ups were fantastic. And I got $10 for living in Canada when I spent 2 days on and off getting CT scans and the whole bit. And the bill was absolutely zero. So it makes me proud to be a Canadian. My only comment about our medical system is we have no problem with the quality of doctors, but the quantity, yeah, maybe.
Well, glad to see you're back and standing, Stephen. I can see the bandage on your head there.
Yeah, boo-boo.
Wow. Oh, you're boo-boo. Anyone else?
Yeah, I do for the arrival of Charlie Baker. So $20 to celebrate our new addition to the family.
Very nice, Vicky. Thank you. Anyone else? I think that is it, unless I'm missing anyone. Okay, well, let's move on to our speaker now. So let's have Walter Wells introduce our speaker formally for today.
Thank you, David. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Mark Wells. Now, the first thing I'd better say at this point is that as far as I know, Mark and I are not related. But Mark is the Vice President of Marketing at the Briton House Retirement Center. That's where Gail and I now live. I was surprised when we started considering moving to a retirement home, how little I knew about retirement homes. And since some of you on this Zoom are approaching my venerable age, I thought you would be interested in some more information, at least about one of them. Mark is a multifaceted individual with a unique duality of experience spanning the realms of music and business. As you already know, he's a violinist. He graduated with a Bachelor of Music degree in violin performance at the U of T. He then further honed his skills through postgraduate work at the Manhattan School of Music. And his musical journey has led him to perform with prestigious orchestras such as the TSO, the Canadian Opera Company, and the National Ballet, as among others, as he had mentioned. Alongside his musical pursuits, Mark immersed himself in the world of business, working alongside his father in the family business, which is the Briton House Retirement Center. Currently, Mark holds the position of Vice President of Marketing and is a key part of the Briton House ownership and management structure. Mark will tell us some interesting things about himself and about retirement homes in general, and some intriguing items about Briton House in particular. Mark Wells.
Thank you, Walter, and thank you for inviting me, Toronto Eglinton Rotary Club. Thanks for the invite. I think, yeah, I was feeling like what I would do is give you a little bit of background on the Briton House, just in terms of its history a little bit, and then also perhaps just a little bit of more general knowledge about the market, and perhaps at the end, people have questions about the market and what's happening, what the trends are, and that kind of thing in the retirement sector. But to begin with, the Briton House Retirement Center is something my father started in 1976, so about 48 years ago. Can everybody hear me okay? Everything's fine? We're good, okay. 1976, my father backed into that industry, because what happened is in 1972, he owned the land here at the corner of Mount Pleasant and Sudan. And there was a developer who wanted to build a hotel here. My father was not necessarily interested in the hotel business, and make a long story short, he ended up leasing the land. I don't know if you're familiar with those things in Europe. In London, it's very common, but land lease, 99-year land lease to the developers. They built what was referred to in those days as the Mont Sudan Apartment Hotel, which is the corner of Sudan and Mount Pleasant, hence the Mont Sudan Apartment Hotel. That was in 72. I mentioned to Walter the other day, just after that, that I was quite young at that time, but one of the former prime ministers, father of Justin, Pierre, and his wife Margaret at the time. This is in the 70s now. I think this was maybe his second election. But they in those days, for security reasons, they would book multiple hotels in the city, and then the security people would at the last second pick one.
Call from 6477845777.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is, but in any event, Pierre Trudeau picked our hotel, which was kind of fun. So I was introduced to my father, and my father introduced to us. So there was a hotel at the very beginning here. And unfortunately, the hotel developers did not do well here, and were not making any money, and were therefore not paying my father's lease. So he began to operate the hotel in order to help them, and figured, I own the land, I'm running the hotel. And so he put a syndicate of people together to purchase from the hotel operator. And there he was with the hotel he never really wanted. And he read an article in the Telegram around this time. I have to admit, I forget the name of the author. Some of you remember the Telegram newspaper in Toronto. But this journalist, decided to retire to the King Edward Hotel. So he made a deal with the King Edward to rent a suite there on a permanent basis and have his housekeeping and have his food. My father read that article and thought, that's what I'm going to do with the Briton House, which at the time was the Mont Sedan Apartment Hotel. So it was one of the first, if not the first, sort of hotel style retirement living in the city of Toronto. There were other, more like sort of, I guess you'd refer to as nursing homes at that time in the 70s, but there wasn't really a lot of sort of hotel. There really wasn't hotel style retirement living at that time. So in 1976, we started that. For a while, we ran it sort of as, we had what we referred to as permanent guests, and then also temporary guests. Because my father, we weren't really sure whether this would work, because it hadn't been done in the city of Toronto at that time. And as it evolved, we began to realize that, yeah, this can actually work. So we shut down the hotel operation, and in 1976 we became a retirement home in 1976, and we've been here since that time, which is 48 years. We did acquire the land to the north of us, which used to be a city parking lot in the old days. If you know that area, it used to be a Sunoco gas station there. There was a Daimler dealer. I don't know if you remember American Motors. When I was a kid, there was an American Motors dealer just. The city of Toronto came to us and said they wanted to buy the land and put a parking lot there. And they said, we don't want to compete with you. Obviously, you're just to the south. You might want to buy it too. Let's not fight each other over this. Well, we had no money, and which my father did not necessarily let on to the city, but he said, you guys could go ahead and buy it, but maybe in the future, if we want to develop it, maybe we can work together. So many years later, we came back to the city and said, hey, we'd like to expand. Would you be willing to sell us your land, and then we'll build you a parking lot in our facility, which you can have full ownership to, which they do. And then we need more space, and we need, this community is growing, and we want to do that. So the parking authority had no record of that agreement, but the gentleman who was running the parking authority at that time, he said, it sounds like something we would have said, and it sounds reasonable, so let's do something together. So we did. We worked with them. We bought the land from them, and they have if you know the area now, they have a green pea parking lot in our building, and we sort of own below, and we built our north tower above, and then we joined the two towers. And so that's sort of how we've ended up now with the two towers in terms of the facility as kind of a whole. Just to go back a little bit, when we started, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to jump in, but when we first started with just the South Tower, just the hotel, we started in 76. There was no assisted living at that time. We did a few activities, but mostly we just provided food and housekeeping. There was no medical staff really here at that time. This was very early in that industry from that point of view, in the hotel style, independent living kind of retirement concept. But quickly we began to realize that the people, they were aging and were starting to need some additional care, and they wanted to stay. They didn't want to leave. and go to some nursing home or something where they might not be comfortable. So we ended up enclosing a roof garden on the top of our building with, of course, city permission, and put in our first assisted living floor on the very top of that. And that would have been, you know, a number of years after that, but not so many, because we began to realize that what we refer to now in the industry as a full continuum of care was becoming quite important. So we launched that, and that was our 12th floor in the South Tower. When we built the North Tower, negotiating with the city parking authority, we increased the amount as a percentage of care suites in our building up to around 30%, and moved all of the assisted living into that new North Tower. And so the 12th floor in the original South Tower, that was our first assisted living floor, everyone moved into the North Tower, and we renovated the South Tower for independent living. So as of today, the South Tower is entirely independent living, and all of our assisted living and assisted living with memory care is in the North Tower. But the interesting part of that was we expanded the percentage in the building of assisted living, and that's industry-wide. What's happened over the last, say, 45 years in this industry is that, well, a number of things obviously have happened. It's become a much larger industry. You have the Amicas of the world and the Chartwells and pension funds, and there aren't, to be honest, there are not a lot of what they might refer to as mom and pop operations like ours left. We simply own and operate this facility, and that's it. But besides the industry growth in those different areas with sort of larger players in the industry, the average age coming into facilities like ours has moved up. And originally, where we didn't necessarily provide so much care, now our largest department in terms of labor is our care. We have over 50 to 60 people on staff in the care department alone. We have about 140 people on staff in total in our facility. And so what we really aim to do is to make sure when someone came here, they wouldn't have to leave. That other facilities were doing that as well, as they noticed that what was happening is people were staying in their homes longer, and this is definitely true now with more home care and things. They were coming into facilities like ours later in life, and quite often needing more care. So that's why the care component of these facilities has grown. In the early stages of that process, there were a lot of the larger players who didn't necessarily want to be providing a lot of care, because when you're providing a lot of care, you have a lot of staff. And just to be blunt, I think there were some of the people in the industry who found that the margins from a business point of view were a little bit smaller because you had such high labor costs. But we always felt it was crucial to the community and to what we were doing. And so we just did that. And also, I mean, this is, as Walter had mentioned, this is a family business my father started, and there's my brother and my sister who's a nurse, and myself. And so we don't have anybody sort of breathing down our backs telling us how we have to perform, or, you know, what our returns have to be. But the industry as a whole struggled with that transition to some extent because the margins were smaller. So you had some of the larger operators where they were providing independent living, but not necessarily that much in the way of assisted living. They would want you to sort of maybe potentially move somewhere else. That has changed in the last little while, and you have large operators like, say, an Amica. They have 60 homes across the country. They are now, in their newer facilities, they are building almost a 50-50 ratio between assisted living and independent living. Not everyone is doing that. There are still players who want to focus pretty exclusively on independent living, because obviously higher levels of staffing and the care that you're providing, you know, there's just, it's more difficult, and there are higher levels of costs and things like that. But the bottom line is, we've always done that. We are known sort of in the industry as always having provide a lot of care, and that's kind of what we feel is the appropriate thing. And I think the industry has come to that conclusion as well, because, as I say, people are sort of staying in their homes a little bit longer, and by the time they're coming into retirement facilities, there is a higher level of care required. So the industry, I think, is beginning to understand a little bit of that sort of transition. So this is like we've been in the. I started working here as a kid when I was 13. So in the 70s, as a summer job, I was painting and cleaning toilets and doing maintenance and stuff. But we've had a long history in this business, and so we've seen that develop. But yeah, if anybody wants to jump in and have a conversation or a question, happy to do that. I didn't. I think that might be the most interesting on the music side of things. Ron, I think his name was Ron. The gentleman is at the Arts and Letters Club. I do have a history there because I went to school at U of T, and we used to go down and play there, and it was lovely. But as I got a little bit older, I began, when I came back from New York, I began to work for the family business in the Briton House and do less and less music. And as I say, my wife is a violinist in the Toronto Symphony. We have a lot of great concerts here. We had the concertmaster of the Toronto Symphony and the concertmaster of the Montreal Symphony doing duets here. And since I know a lot of the people in that business, we have a lot of really wonderful concerts here. A lot of our clientele are members of the symphony or the opera or the ballet, and they have love to have those concerts here, which I love as well. In the North Tower, when we built the North Tower on top of that land that I mentioned used to belong to the Toronto Parking Authority, we built a recital hall in there, and that was sort of, my father agreed with me that was something that would be great to have. And at the time, I was still playing a lot of music, involved with music in the city of Toronto, so we got that, and that's been a great asset to our residents. It doubles as a surround sound movie theater, but we also can do concerts in there, and have a hall there in the North Tower is lovely. But so that's kind of a bit of a history of the Briton House, starting in the 70s as a hotel, converting into a retirement residence in 76, the first sort of hotel style seniors residence in the city. Ditching the whole hotel side in the later 70s as we got feeling like this was actually could work. And my father didn't like the hotel business, so here we are. And then we expanded in the North Tower and built that. And I joined the company in a little bit more official way after returning from New York, doing postgraduate studies in music there, and sort of started up in the marketing side. My brother is a chartered accountant. He is our VP of finance, and my sister is an RN, so she is VP of nursing services. And they got to figure out a name to get what to do with me. So they said, you can be the marketing director because you're a musician and we have no idea what you can do. So anyway, that's sort of, it's just that my father passed away about 6 years ago. And so it's just the three of us now. So we all get on well and enjoy what we're doing, and hopefully continue to be able to contribute to the community for as many years as we continue to do it. But
Mark,
yeah, questions.
Mark, can I ask you a question about one of the terms you used in your presentation? You talked, I believe you used the term memory care. Can you tell us what that's about?
Yeah, on one of our floors, we have it's a secure floor, and generally, you don't want to say, we don't say Alzheimer's or anything like that anymore. We talk about memory care or cognitive, because the reality is, unfortunately, we're all on a my cognitive impairment. I'm trying to remember the name of an actor or something, or a movie or something. We're all on this, unfortunate glide path in terms of memory. So that's more, we moved away from talking about, in the old days, they used to talk about, oh, that's your Alzheimer's floor, but the reality is cognitive impairment is sort of a trajectory and a glide path. But so we call that our cognitive impairment floor or memory floor. And it is a secure floor for those that might have a tendency to perhaps wander, not know where they are. So that kind of thing. That's a tricky part of the business, because the reality is there are people who can function well in independent living, and they are independent. So they're independent living. Of course, they have all their meals and they have housekeeping and all of those things provided for them, activities and concerts and movies and all that. But as they progress and living here again as in a full continuum of care and not having to go anywhere else, there sometimes can be a deterioration where once in a while these things become an issue, where you might have someone who's prone to wander or something like that. So when it first starts, we're very careful about it. We monitor it. We have people we have a list at the front desk as to who should and shouldn't maybe go out, and you can sort of redirect and that kind of thing. But ultimately, you're looking at that kind of thing in particular, meaning that they probably need, in terms of their care, their care needs, they probably need to be on a secure floor. So the secure floor, we have 21 rooms on our secure floor, which is a memory impaired floor. And then we have another 2 floors, again, around 20 on each floor. So call it 40. We actually have 41, total of 62 assisted living suites. And those are just assisted living, but not necessarily memory care. On the memory care floor, we also do a program for those individuals to keep them engaged, and because you need to engage those people, otherwise, you know, it's not healthy for them. So we do programs up there during the day with them every day that they engage with. And then some of the residents in our independent living sometimes go and attend there. If we're starting to feel like from a care point of view, they could benefit from those programs, some people go to that floor for those care programs. But one of the key differences there is obviously the people there are fairly advanced in terms of their cognitive impairment, and it is a secure floor. So they can't get off the floor without a code, and that's of course known by the nurses and so forth. Of course, for fire reasons, all the doors open and everything goes if there's a fire alarm. But yeah, so that's something with respect to our memory floor. But it's an assisted living floor, and it's referred to generally in the industry as assisted living with memory care. So in the old days, we used to call it our Alzheimer's floor, but that really is not appropriate anymore because you have people who have cognitive impairment for different reasons. Some people don't necessarily have so-called Alzheimer's. They just have cognitive impairment, vascular issues, many strokes, you know, all kinds of different reasons that may have nothing to do with Alzheimer's. So
Great. Thank you for that explanation. Thanks, Mark.
does that answer your
Can
question?
Yeah,
Can
thank
I
you.
ask a question, Mark?
Yeah.
As the daughter of someone who is in a facility actually fairly close to you, she's at the Belmont.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering if you'd like to comment on the effects that COVID have had on you residents at your place. I know that at the Belmont, it was incredibly, like those 3 months of lockdown where residents couldn't leave their rooms, or however long it was, I don't remember, had a really negative effect on people's cognitive abilities and the lack of social contact and that sort of thing, the stimulation. Did you also find that? Is that something that's sort of common industry-wide?
Yes, I would agree with your assessment. It's extremely difficult. I mean, you know, I'm in the marketing thing. It is a title they just hung around my neck, but that's technically what I do. And when I used to do tours, I don't do the tours anymore. But when I used to do the tours, one of the things I would tell people is that it's about community, and it's about interacting. Humans are meant to interact with other humans. They're not. It's really what that's about. You're creating a community as much. Because I remember there was one guy, I can't remember his name. He was living around Yonge and St. Clair in a condo, and he was a really fit guy. I mean, he was like 80 years old, but he was, you know, and I kind of went over to, he used to sit in our atrium and read a newspaper. And I went over to him once and said, you know, why did you come? You know, clearly he didn't need to be here. Like, you know, he could totally be on his own. He says, you know what? I just realized some days I'd go 3 days, I hadn't talked to anybody. And he said, I just realized that I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. And he wasn't like he wanted to chat with everybody and engage with everybody. He didn't. But he just wanted to be in the atrium. We have an atrium space, you know, 15,000 square feet, English garden thing. And he just wanted activity and people to be around, because that's really, really crucial. And we did not get that. The isolation from COVID really had a significant impact on cognitive issues, on just how people were doing. I think maybe like in our industry, we have learned, I don't know how future decisions will be made, but we certainly learned that there's a very significant impact to that kind of social isolation. And, you know, I understand why, like, you know, it was certainly a difficult time, but boy, it did have an impact in our industry. I mean, I don't necessarily want to speak too much about. My sister she's an RN, she went to university, and she's an infection control person. So we worked extremely hard, and we had a small outbreak right as the vaccines were coming out, and then the vaccines honestly did shut down our outbreak. But there was originally, I don't know if maybe I should be careful what I say here, but originally there was the whole mask issue. I don't want to stir up a lot of trouble here, but we had some significant disagreements with public health at the time, because we had masks, we had PPE, because we went through SARS, and since our family has been here for 48 years, we were not going to have PPE. Like, I mean, I don't know why. Anyway, I can leave that alone, but we had PPE in our basement. We did. So as soon as this hit, and the difficulty, the difference between, from our point of view, from SARS, where if you were sick, you knew it. You were sick. We could screen you at the front. We could screen you at the front door and go, okay, you're sick. You can't come in. With this particular thing, you might not show signs of sick, but you might be carrying it, and you could transmit it. And that's a big problem coming into our clientele. So we were very concerned. So we said, okay, everybody has to wear a mask. Okay. And we had them. But at the time, as you remember, early on, we weren't supposed to be wearing masks. But our staff all wore masks from the very beginning. When we first had the shutdowns, we had masks for everybody. We had masks for all of our residents. And then the government workers that were coming in, because some people use, Lynn and that kind of thing, they use. Why not? If you can get a certain number of hours of care, you should. But those people were refusing to wear masks in our building. And we were saying, listen, we have masks. We'll give them to you. We just want you to wear them. It became a big issue, and they withdrew all their workers. So that we had to cover the care that they were providing with our own staff, because at the time we just felt we really wanted people to be masked, at least at that time, until we really further understood what was going on. I shouldn't maybe speak too much about this inside public health issues that we had, but certainly it was an interesting time. And I think as we worked our way through it and came out the other end, in terms of the isolation that was happening, there was, I think, not understandably so, there was concern. And I think there were a couple instances where we pushed a little bit to said, we need to open up a little bit in order to help these people in terms of their engagement and stuff. At the same time, making sure that our infection control was really high. Realistically speaking, I think we did really well with infection control. But there was, at least in our side of it, and I think in the industry in general, and it's understandable, the governments were being extremely cautious as we came out of the problems. And we felt that there was perhaps a little bit too much continued isolation when we had the vaccines. We were doing very well with that. And we felt like really, community and isolating people is good when it's a real crisis, but then afterwards we were hoping that they would have relaxed a little bit more. I'm just being honest with you. And I think that was felt fairly widely in the industry, but it's understandable. Government was, trying to do their best, and it was a very difficult situation. And I would have not wanted any of their jobs for any amount of money. It was extremely difficult, and we were cognizant of that. We had great relationships with Sunnybrook Hospital, because at the time they set up teams. They were called IPAC teams. And the IPAC teams at each hospital was responsible for long-term care and retirement homes in their area. And the doctors at Sunnybrook were just fantastic. They were really great. We could get a call directly into them, ask them advice on things. The way they set up those IPAC teams was a really very positive and beneficial things for retirement homes and for long-term care as well. And it helped a lot. And so there were some real positive things that were happening, but I think there was a feeling in general that we wanted to unwind some of those things in order to get the community back engaged, because we noticed significant deterioration with our residents when they were completely isolated. And that's not a surprise. And as I say, I used to use that for when I would tour people and say, this is as much about, community as it is about, getting good meals and that kind of thing. It's really interesting. But does that answer your question a little bit? That I sort of the isolation was a problem. They did it for a reason, and we certainly understood that, and there was a time for it. But there's no question it had a larger impact on our people than we expected, and therefore, as we came out of it, we pushed a little bit, and I think all of the larger operations did as well. We're just one. We're not we're not powerful like Amica, but we did push a little bit, and because we felt it was important that we kind of bring the community back together again for the health of the community and the individuals. Other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. You and your siblings have taken over from your dad. Briton House has a wonderful reputation in the community. I'm sure your dad's looking down and very proud. I wanted to know about the next generation after you. Are you training other people? Are you training kids and nieces and nephews to take over from you guys?
Thank you very much. I hope my father is. Yeah, we have, my son is here, and some of that generation is here. John, my sister and my brother and I still feel like we have a road forward to go in terms of operation. But yeah, we have, I have my nieces here, and my son is here, and so there is some contact with the next generation. Nothing is certain yet, and we haven't really even sort of talked about that yet. I'm still feeling fairly healthy and fairly wanting to keep working for the moment. But yeah, we talk about that. We're beginning to talk about that more. And my son is here, and my sister, who is the director of nursing, her daughter is running the dining room now. She has a degree from University of Toronto in what do you call it? I've drawn a blank. There you go. You see, cognitive impairment. She's in nutrition and all those kind of things. She has a degree from U of T, so she's involved with our. She's running our dining room, and my sister is an RN. My other sister, someone mentioned North York General. I think someone has had a good experience there. Perhaps that's you. Yeah, my sister is in post-operative care there. My other sister, both of them are nurses, and my mother was a nurse, so they were all at North York General. Now my Margaret works for us here, but my sister is in post-operative care at North York General.
Wow. One further quick question. Walter Wells, as you know, has been with you for a good while, and he's had a lot to say about Briton House. And all I want to know is he on your payroll?
I think that's a good idea. We should probably do that, but he is not. He is not. He is not. No.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Will you be expanding with a West Tower?
No. Originally, we were thinking about that, and we did have conversations with the city about that, and we were looking into that in a very significant way. But in the end, we are not. And I'll tell you honestly that comes about mostly because of COVID. COVID was exhausting. It was so hard because it was at the very beginning incredibly scary that you saw these long-term care facilities where half the people were dying, or most of them, and we were terrified that I know these people. Like I walk around every day. I know the residents. I know the staff, and it was a very scary time. And just running through that whole period, as a family, we just sort of sat down and went, do we really want to do this? And the end of the day, we kind of stepped back and went, we're 225 rooms. We have 2 towers. It's a large facility, and we just felt going to like 400 beds or something. We just thought, I don't think we can do it. As a family, we made a decision that it just really wasn't an expansion we were comfortable with anymore. But that was the original plan, yes, but it is no longer the plan. We just figured we're going to continue to operate this facility, and that's the extent of it. But I mean, our staff was terrified when COVID started. I mean, it's a weird thing to talk about, and COVID is like a whole nother life when we look back on it. But my son came in at that time. He was just finishing university, And he came in at that time because the staff was threatening to leave because they were worried they were going to die. Now, we did have masks for them, which they were so appreciative because that, and we gave them all masks and we had shields and stuff for them. But I had a meeting. I still remember the meeting in the dining room, which I took and talked to all the dining room servers. And I said, "You're not going to die." And I said, "I just brought my son in here. He's just straight out of university. I brought my son in here to help us and to work with us in the dining room and anywhere we need him. Would I do that if I thought there was a real threat that we were going to die or someone was going to die in this facility, staff?" And they said, "No, I guess you probably wouldn't. Okay, we'll stay." And they stayed. We didn't lose anybody during that period. But it was a terrifying and very stressful and a lot of work. And I'm saying the negative side of it. We came out of it very well. But I think we just made a decision that we just don't feel comfortable expanding at this point in our careers and in our life, and that's where we are.
As the population,
that answer your question? There you go.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
As I have a question. As the population ages, a lot of places are nearing capacity and have waiting lists. Do you have a waiting list in your place? And what are the costs involved?
We have a waiting list. We're full at the moment, but there's always changes that occur because we have the care floor. So you have someone, say, moving out of independent living, will move on to a care floor, that kind of thing. The costs, I guess, the smallest rooms in our independent living, they call it around $3,000 a month, ballpark. You start in the threes. And nothing changes other than square footage. So you're still getting, whether you're on the low end of our market or the high end of our market, you're still getting all your meals, you're getting housekeeping, you're getting all the activities, you're getting a certain level of basic nursing care, emergency nurse call, all that kind of stuff. So you start probably, I'd say the simplest thing to say is we start around $3,000 a month, and you go up to, say, about upper eights, around 9, upper eights in that range if you're getting the biggest of our suites, all the way from bachelor suites to 2-bedroom suites. As you imagine, the South Tower, that was a hotel. So I don't know if you remember, you probably do. I remember efficiency hotels, like they used to call them efficiency hotels. So from the 8th floor to the 12th floor, those were efficiency hotels, i.e. they had a kitchen and people would come in to do business in Toronto and they'd stay 3 weeks or a month, and those were better deals. So they were sort of like suites. So 8th floor to the 12th floor of our South Tower as a hotel were those kind of suites. And then below the 8th floor, you just had sort of bachelor type rooms, which were hotel rooms. We call them Kents. My father named them all sort of British names. We have Kents, we have Sandringhams, we have Balmorals, all that kind of thing. So that's kind of the layout from in the South Tower. In the North Tower, it's a mixture. It's a new tower, so that's a mixture of 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, and bachelors. Most of what we have would be, the largest number of our suites are bachelors, because that is relatively cost effective. I mean, renting in our neighborhood now at Yonge and Eglinton, even just renting in a regular apartment, has gotten extremely expensive, let alone, I actually had a woman, she sold her house locally and wasn't sure whether she's moving to Vancouver or whatever for family reasons. And I did a tour with her. This was a couple of years back. This is pre-COVID. I did a tour with her, and she was relatively young. So I was thinking, is it her parent or who's she touring for? And she said, "It's actually for me. I sold my house and I don't know what to do. I don't want to sign a year lease. Your lease is month to month." I said, "Yeah, it's a 30-day contract. Legislation, that's the legislation. It's a 30-day contract." And I took her to one of our smallest suites, which was a bachelor. And she asked me the price, and I gave her the price. And she says, "Okay, so I don't pay any tax. You pay all my utilities. I'm getting my meals and housekeeping. And that's the price at Yonge and Eglinton." And I said, "Yes." She said, "Sign me up." And she was young. I think she was late 60s. And she stayed for about 6 or 8 months before she figured out what was going on. She made a lot of friends here. And even after she left, she ended up staying in Toronto. She came in and visited. She'd come in as a guest sometimes and have lunch here and visit with our people. But she kind of looked at the math and went, yeah. And a 30-day month-to-month contract, she liked that. So that's by legislation. Anyone can give us 30 days notice and they can leave at any time. The other thing is people quite often they struggle with what unit they're going to take. Now that we're so full, quite often if we have a room available, people will just take that. But you can move internally anytime you want. Something else comes up, we have internal wait lists where someone might say, I'll take a bachelor for now, but if you get a 1-bedroom that comes up, I'd like to take that. Or, I was having tea with Mrs. So-and-so, and I like her view. When there's a south one in the South Tower available, let me know, I'll move there. Although I will say that internal wait list gets pretty soft, because once you get comfortable in your room and people go, I'm fine, my view's fine, I don't need to switch. But so we are full, we do have a wait list, but it's not like, we don't say to clients, you're waiting 2 years or something. Depends. Floors are tricky. The assisted living floors, that can be a longer wait sometimes, and there is a wait list for that. But internally, stuff always usually pops up and goes fairly quickly. But it's does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions about our facility or the industry in general? Or
I do.
Yeah.
Mark, what kind of medical doctors do you have on staff?
We don't have any doctors on staff because we're a private institution, and we can't have, with the Canada Health Act, you can't have like doctors on staff, if you know what I mean. But we do have doctors who come and do rounds here, and they take patients in our facility. So my sister would be able to give you this information much better than me, to be honest with you. Dr. Heath is still here. She's been here a long time. Dr. Heath, she is a doctor that comes here, and I believe we have 2 other doctors as well. And I'm so sorry that I can't give you the names, but we do. Obviously, we have a close relationship with Sunnybrook, but in terms of, you can't technically have a doctor on a hire a doctor and put them on staff like a private. We're not really able to do that, but they are able to come in and take patients here, and then they come in and do rounds, once a week. Like our head, not my sister, but the lady below her is our head director of nursing care, Lourdes Cardino. She takes the doctors around and has them do rounds, and she'll say, oh, Mrs. So-and-so wants to see you because she's feeling a little this. And so they do rounds, a little bit like hospital rounds, but technically speaking, they're not working for us or on staff on our facility. That's not something.
So do you make arrangements for patients to see their family doctors if they have one, or do you affiliate them with doctors that you have relationships with at the hospital? They need medical care.
Yeah, I mean, if they have a relationship with a doctor, they a lot of times they just keep them. Sometimes that's difficult because if they're coming from outside of Toronto or wherever, they don't have a local doctor, then they'll ask if we can connect them with one of our doctors. But it's sort of, we will assist, but it's sort of outside of our, it doesn't really matter to us. You can keep your own doctor, or if you don't have a doctor, then you can work with one of our doctors. One of our doctors is somewhat more convenient, but we can also arrange, appointments and those kind of things, and help people get to those appointments if they don't have family and stuff to do that. We can do that as well. So you have people who keep their doctors who are long-term and they just stay with them. And then other people who, come from Ottawa or something, they're moving here because their family's here. They need a local doctor. So we try and assist with that too.
Do you have short-term respite for caregivers?
Sorry, say that again?
Do you have short-term respite for caregivers?
Yeah, we have short-term respite. We don't do less than a month because we're a permanent residency. If someone had like a hip surgery and wanted somewhere to do respite, they could speak to us and we could do that. We don't have specific respite suites. It's any suite that would be available. You could have it for a month. We don't do less than a month because there's a lot of admin and stuff, and we're permanent residency. We don't want people sort of coming for a weekend, because there's a fair amount of, we have to look at the medical, understand all the drugs they're taking, all the medications, all their issues, because when they land here, you want to be, you want to be fully aware of what could happen with them from a medical point of view. So there's a decent amount of admin, and we don't want to do that for someone who says, I want to come for a week or something. It's not something we do. But if they want to come for a month or something because they've had a hip surgery or something, that happens fairly regularly. Is that what you were asking?
Yes.
What about caregivers though?
And how about caregivers?
Caregivers, you can bring your own caregiver if you want. And we have, of course, caregivers here. We have about 50 people. We have PSWs, we have RPNs, we have, my sisters and RN. So we have registered staff here on on staff here. But if you had your own caregiver, say from home, and you wanted to bring your caregiver here, you could do that, no problem.
Okay.
As a suite, I mean, we kind of look at it like, especially if you're an independent suite. My father used to always say this. I mean, it's your apartment, right? Like, you want to have a guest come, or you want to have a caregiver come, like, no problem. And a lot of people have relationships already with a caregiver, and they want to continue that. So it's not a problem for us.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Other questions? Any questions about violin playing? No. Stradivarius?
Okay.
Very
Well,
diligent.
thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. I'm going to have Bob Vernon thank you officially on behalf of the club.
Ah,
Mark, it's been a great pleasure having you join us, albeit virtually, this afternoon.
thank you.
As someone who grew up in the Mount Pleasant and Eglinton neighborhood, the first block south of Eglinton on the west side of Mount Pleasant was extremely important to me as
Yeah.
a child because of Upland's Dairy Ice Cream Bar.
Ah,
I don't
yeah.
know if others remember it. It was, I think, at about maybe 744 Mount Pleasant, just a little bit south of the school.
Deli was for years too, the jazz place, right? You remember the chicken deli there in that plaza?
Yes, I think the ice cream shop preceded the chicken deli. But after Upland's Dairy's demise, I recall seeing the Mount Sudan apartment hotel going up on the scene. And as you've told us, that became in the late 70s the Briton House Retirement Center.
Correct.
Having only been in Briton House on one occasion for a brief visit many years ago, I was fascinated, as I'm sure we all were, to hear your story about the development and growth of Briton House. Certainly the strong and unique leadership of your father, Russell Wells, whose resonating voice so many of us heard on the radio ads for many, many years. He was really quite distinctive.
Yeah.
And generally telling us about the fine care and service that Briton House has been providing for fortunate seniors for more than 4 decades. So thank you so very much, Mark, for taking the time to speak to us today about the important role that this North Toronto landmark has played and continues to play in our community. So
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
Yes,
Mark, thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Radio. He knew Lauren Green, went to Lauren Green Radio School. If you remember that in Toronto, I don't know if you remember that. And James Doohan, Scotty was there, and a bunch of guys, and that's how he started a career. Actually, he was in that business, and so we twisted his arm to finally start doing those commercials. He wanted to hire a voiceover. I said, "Why are we hiring a voiceover? You're a radio guy. You work for CBC and Lauren Green Radio School. That goes back a long way in Toronto, but interesting history in this city. Anyway, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully something of interest that I was able to communicate.
Thank you, Mark. It was very informative presentation today. We're going to continue on with our meeting. If you'd like to stay on, you're more than welcome to, but you're more than welcome to leave because I know you're probably fairly busy. So, but thank you again for your time today.
Thanks very much, guys. My pleasure. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, let's talk about my president's announcements. So first off, I want to remind everybody that the district assembly is on Saturday this week. If you have not registered and planning on attending, I will put the registration link in my follow-up email. I know that a couple of people are going to be at this, including Anna, who's going to be talking about her Ukraine initiative. We also have a request, and I don't know if Norma wants to speak a little more about this because I know she's on the call, but Toronto West is hosting a culinary fundraiser on June 6th. And because our international committee is supporting the water project in Cambodia, this event is there to raise money for that. I will include all the information, but I know that Laura had sent out an email this past week in regards to the details on that. It is June 6th. It is at King West, but all the details are associated with that in my email.
Nothing more to say, David. Nothing more to
okay.
say. Just It's at George Brown College. She only had 6 tickets left, so she just wondered if I would throw it out, if we would throw it out. So that's all. That's all there
Okay.
is to say.
Okay, if you're interested, you can register through my follow-up email or the email that Laura sent out. Also, we have our trails visit. So we have an in-person meeting next week at the Toronto Lawn, and then our supposedly next Zoom meeting, which was on the 12th of June, is actually going to be our trails visit. I meant to go online and find how many people we've had registered. We've had a good number of people register already. But if you haven't registered and you want to attend that event, the link to the registration page to purchase your spot, it's a $20 reservation to cover the food and clothing for the LITs this season. And if you want to do that, please do that as soon as possible. And if you need a ride or can offer a ride, please reach out to Tom Knott. He will organize carpooling as we move forward. Also, June 19th, we have our year-end meeting. So please make yourself available at the Toronto Lawn. It's going to be a great presentation of a recap of our year. Plus, we're going to be doing our awards presentations. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you just make sure you're there, that'd be fantastic. And last but not least, we have the Blues Fest coming up on June 22nd. This is a part of our community service group. It runs from 12 till 9 p.m. at the East York Civic Center, which is on Coxwell Avenue. I will be getting the volunteer sign-up sheet sometime this week, and I will send out an email for you to be able to register for those. We're looking for people for 2-hour shifts. A couple of us are going to go out for 10:30 in the morning to help set up our tent and such. But the first band hits the stage at 12 o'clock. So we'll really need to probably have, I think, a minimum of 2 volunteers. I'm not sure, but I think it's probably 2 volunteers per the 2-hour shift. So if you're available, that would be great. It happens rain or shine. So look for that email from me later this week. And with that, there's also a reminder, and I'm pretty sure this is happening. We have an international committee meeting right after this meeting. Is that true, Jim?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and that's
And,
via Zoom. So please stay on for that. Anything to add to that, Jim?
Yes, we have a couple of items, motions to present to the club from the last board meeting. The first of these, I don't think needs much explanation. This is our annual support for the Karanda Nurses Training Program. And that's a $1,500 US amount contribution from our club. And I would move that we support that and look for a vote.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Ron Denham. All in favor? Looks like you got a pass there, Jim.
I don't know how to
Sure.
do it, but yes, I don't know how to raise my hand, but my hand's up.
Okay.
Thank you. We also have another motion for this is a project we've supported in the past with the Rotary Club of Uxbridge. They support teen clubs for HIV young people in Malawi. And so again, I would move that we support this. It's actually in the amount of $1,000, so I'm not sure we even need to come to the membership. But I'm happy to announce it. It's been approved by the board. And then the third item we have is clean water for health centers in Cambodia. This is what, David, what you were just talking about, Toronto West. And we have agreed to support them in the amount of $500 for this project. So those are our current projects. We also have and will be discussing in more detail at our immediately following committee meeting the proposed project for Ukraine. And that's basically, oh, Jackie, you have a question.
You're muted, Jackie.
I have a question about the support for the Kuranda nurses training. This is the fourth year that we have supported this from the McClure Fund. So it's training of nurses in Paul Thistle's hospital in Kuranda. And since Paul comes back every summer, I'm wondering if anyone has invited him to come to one of our meetings and perhaps present this check to him. I mean, officially it has to go, the check has to go to the team of Canada in Calgary. But, you know, if we could have a presentation, I just wondered if you thought about inviting him, Jim.
No, it's a great idea, and he would also be able to give us an update on the rehab project.
Yeah. So do we have a time for him to come, or could we just slip him into a meeting in June or July? I think he's here in June and July.
Probably have to be in July.
We find out what dates are good for him, though, Jackie. I mean, you don't know what he's committed to when he's here.
No, I just wondered who's going to follow up on this.
Well, Jim or Ganese. Well, Ganese will be in Turkey, so I guess it will be up to Jim. Or do you want Jackie? Does Jackie want to follow up? Because you have a connection with him for so many years.
I don't have to, Jim. If you want to do it, that's fine with me.
I can do it, sure.
Good.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, David?
Go ahead, Tom.
During the board meeting, we got the board to approve, plus the youth committee to approve the Trails for Life grant for $6,000 for 4 years. And we need to get the club to approve what has been approved. Now, Lionel's not here because of other reasons. So
I think he was going to present that in person next week, but we can do it here if you want.
oh, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. It's fine. Fine. Fine.
Yeah, because that's his week, and I think he was going to present that because it's not immediate, right? Well, it is,
Right. Right. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else to be raised before we close out this portion of the meeting?
What about the golf?
We're not talking to that quite yet. Let's get through the trails visit, then we'll talk to the golf.
Everybody should get a foursome together for September 17th. You know, and don't pick members of our club. Pick other people.
Yes, I'm currently working on that flyer once I get the Ukraine flyer done. Yes. Yeah, that is the next big fundraising initiative in the fall. Anything else? So that would end our meeting for today as of at 1:14. And if anyone who's on the international committee can stay on afterwards, that would be great. Otherwise, thank you very much. Everyone have a great week. We'll see you next week at the Toronto Lawn.
Excuse me, can I make an announcement just before you
Sure.
guys go?
Sure, go ahead.
Hi,
Sorry,
everybody. I'm not sure if you guys can see me.
Yes.
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just didn't want to interrupt or anything. And I'm not sure my interface allows me to raise hand here, but hi, everybody. I guess I would have to introduce myself. My name is Arian Hassan. I work in production. I'm part of the Film Union. And at some point I was attending Rotary Interact meetings. It was like over 10 years ago. That was a club in Ottawa and Hamilton. I was introduced to it by my English teacher because we immigrated from like Russia a long time ago. And so recently I was sitting down and I had this weird idea that because I travel often to the States, I had this weird idea that my parents are not very integrated into the local community. They live in Forest Hill. And so I thought it would be nice to kind of introduce them to an organization like Rotary and, you know, have them meet people, because I'm not sure how many of you are like immigrants and or not even immigrants, just like the reality of today's world. It's people with this phenomenon of being lonely and sometimes detached from the network and the community and everything else. So I thought it'd be really like useful for them to, in a way, contribute. My mother, she's a former microbiology researcher. She was the head of the genetics and selection laboratory in Moscow a long time ago. And my dad had a PhD in international law, but they're old now and they're immigrants. So my dad's English is not like on par, I guess. He's not very expressive. But yeah, I know it's a weird introduction nonetheless, but I'm here. And today I told my mother that we're going to go to this meeting. I explained her the case. And we went to the tennis club, unfortunately, to only find out that it's a Zoom meeting. And I would like to thank Walter Wells, I think that is, who told me that it's a Zoom meeting and he sent me the link. So I'm here right now, and maybe I wanted to hear your thoughts on this whole endeavor and see what you guys think about this.
So,
Thank you.
Ariane, what's the best thing is? Have you been on our website yet?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so I'm the president, but I'm also the membership chair. I'm more than happy to talk with your parents or talk with you and your parents. I can set up a Zoom call to go over everything with you, or we can do it in person one day. The other option is for them to come to a meeting. They can come to next week's meeting, which is at the Toronto lawn. And you can be our guests and you can meet everybody then in person and kind of get a feel for it. So if you're available and you can bring your parents with you, you're all three are welcome to join us and get a general idea of what our Rotary Club is all about. That's probably your best bet.
We're almost.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Is anyone of you familiar with Patricia Bartlett Richards?
I am.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she passed away, but she was a close friend of our family. And I was at a Rotary meeting once, a long time ago, with her. And she told me that I should bring my parents. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And yeah, she left us. And you as
How
well.
did you know? How did you know, Patricia? Where are you connected to trails or to the art community?
No, it was a very weird story. I can tell you about it, but I don't even know how it works. So apparently she was managing this program, this art program for international students. And one of the students from Siberia knew a friend of mine. And when Patricia had a birthday, I forgot it was in February, she asked me to gift her a book about Siberian art and culture. So I came to visit her. That was like 10 years ago, maybe, yeah. 9. And I gifted her the book. And since then, we basically became friends. I was at her place multiple times at Granite Club or the former Granite Club building. Yeah, she showed me her collections of art. She told me about the many projects that she supported. Her book, a diary, I don't know if you guys have seen that. She was a fascinating person, and she taught me a lot. So I cherish those values, and I really wanted my parents to be in a circle of people that have similar values. So there is an alignment. Yeah.
The typical Pat Bartlett Richards story. She probably was talking when you mentioned Siberia. Pat used to host the Irkutsk students when we, from Vladimir's school in Irkutsk. So that's probably the connection. Wonderful.
Yes, that's the one. I'm really happy that you're familiar. And this girl is from Irkutsk.
Well, I do recommend you come to our meeting next week. That would probably be your best bet. Or you can actually click on the join button on the website and that'll give me all your information because that information comes to me directly. And then we can go from there. But I really do recommend. So our meeting would start at 12 o'clock next week. And there's a buffet lunch. And then we have our meeting from 12:30 to 1:30. So it'd probably be a great way for your parents to be introduced into our club.
Thank you. I'll make sure we won't miss it. And here's my mother, by the way. You can say hi.
Hi there.
Hi, good to see you.
Hello.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I know that the meeting is over, so I don't want to hold any of you anymore.
Thank you for reaching out. Much appreciated. Sorry we weren't there this week for you.
Yeah, до
Thank you.
свидания.
До свидания. Thank you very much. Дякую to all of you. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
David is,
So if
sorry, I was just gonna say,
Go ahead.
as the meetings change over, I just wanted to mention, I now have my radiation schedule, and unfortunately it conflicts with the June 19th end of the year. It's like right at 12 o'clock on that Wednesday.
I knew you
So-
weren't going to be presenting anyway, so
I
we are good.
wanted to be there because it feels so bad. I think I can come next week. The radiation actually starts next Thursday, so I'm planning to come to the meeting in person. Fingers crossed, but I apologize because I feel like I really haven't been much help
No,
this
your
year.
treatments are more important right now.
Yeah,
so.
well, and
Yep.
after this month, then I'm, well, I've got a few follow-up things, but basically then I'm done.
Okay.
So anyway, I
Well, good.
apologize. I don't want to hold you up. I know you're getting ready for your international meeting, but
Nope.
just wanted
Thank
to
you for
mention
letting us
that.
know. But truly,
Thank you.
no worries.
See you
Thanks,
next
Lisa.
week.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, everyone who's not staying on for the International Committee. You can all leave if you'd like, and then I'm going to hand this over to Jim.
Thank you, David.